Look, there's so many people trying to pay off loans, but they're going about it in the wrong way. As a matter of fact, as society, we've kind of defined loans as debt. Debt meaning anytime we owe someone anything, we call it debt, but the reality is debt is not meaning that we have a loan. Debt is a function of owing more in loans than we have in assets. You can actually have a loan and not be in debt. I'm going to say that again. You can actually have a loan and not be in debt. What we have to understand is which loans are efficient and which loans are inefficient. And there's a way that you could shave off a lot of time it takes to pay off these loans if that's your objective by understanding one tool and strategy called the cash flow index.
Let's put more money in your pocket, increase your financial IQ, and create more peace of mind, clarity, and certainty in your life. Welcome to Money Matters, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we tackle the money topics that matter.
I want to help you demystify money, make things so much more simple, and have something you can practically put on the ground so that right now you could immediately improve your financial life and have a lot more peace of mind. So I've got Tim. I think I hurt myself card, and we say this because Tim has hurt his back so bad before that he had to crawl on his hands and knees, couldn't make it, so he just decided to stay in that spot of his house for about 12 hours, laying flat on his stomach. That's why it's Tim, I think I hurt myself, Carden, one of the brightest money minds that I know out there, and my co-host for this segment of Win Then Play Money Matters as we go through the cash flow index. So let's talk about this cash flow index and how it works.
Okay, so the cash flow index is really at the heart of it. It's a way that we can analyze each debt from a cash flow perspective, which is exactly the way the banks and lending institutions analyze loans.
Right.
They teach us to focus on an interest rate so that they can focus on cash flow. We need to focus on cash flow.
Right. So if you only focus on the interest rate, that may be a fool's errand. That might not be the fastest and best way to get rid of these loans. So if you have more than one loan, what you want to do is write down these loans individually. What's the loan balance? And then you want to divide it by the minimum monthly payment. Not what you're currently paying, but the minimum monthly payment with each loan individually. So loan balance divided by minimum monthly payment, that's going to spit out your cash flow index. Now, if that index is less than 50, I call it the cash hog.
Yep.
You have a cash hog on your hands. It means a high payment in relationship to a relatively low balance. Great situation for the bank and financial institution because they're getting a lot of cash flow without a lot of their capital at risk, right? But if it's above 100, that's a more efficient loan, meaning, okay, you have a decent amount of money that you borrowed with a relatively small payment in relationship to that. Now, somewhere between 50 and 100, I'd call that the danger zone, or the, maybe where we look at is there a structure that you could go through to improve your cash flow index? But let's just go through this and why it's so simple and the methodology of how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, the simplicity of it is just that simple formula that you gave them. It's so easy to quickly identify which loans are cash efficient for us and which loans are cash efficient for the bank. Once we identify that, now we have complete control over those payments, and we can prioritize which ones to pay off, prioritize the payments that we're going to make. I see what I call it the flock chute of debt repayment, right? Where people say, well, I've got all these loans and I'm going to pay an extra this much to each loan, and they feel like they're making a lot of progress.
I call that the shotgun approach.
Yep.
Right? You're just like, you shoot and all of it goes there. It's like, okay, whichever loan was due earliest is what okay, I paid extra because that extra money, then the next one you pay extra too. It's a slower, more risky process. Like, what we're really teaching in Win Then Play is economic independence. Economic independence is creating enough recurring revenue, which is known as cash flow, to cover life's basic expenses. So sometimes it's hard to create that cash flow, and some of the easier things to do would be to lower the expenses, but not through budgeting and cutting back and elimination, simply through efficiency, through what you could do with the cash flow index to eliminate an expense, not because you cut back and enjoy life less, but because you deliberately and intentionally attacked it in a way that helps you to lower that bar. Right? When it comes to standards, we want to raise the bar. When it comes to economic independence, we want to lower the bar so it's easier to get over or to jump over. I don't jump very high, so that kind of helps me out, right?
Perfect.
All right, so let's say you've got 5 loans, and one of those loans is a 30. The other loans are in the 50s, 60s, or over 100. So tell them what to do.
So you're going to focus all of your efforts towards loan repayment towards that cash flow index that's a 30. Now, the other thing about it too is depending on the balance or the size of that loan, it comes back into control of the money. So if it's $100,000 that I owe and I can only afford to put $1,000 a month extra towards that loan, it's going to take me quite a few years to pay that off. So I don't necessarily want to make that $1,000 a month payment to them every single month, right? I'd rather put the $1,000 a month in my own account, earn money on that, use it for growth, and then let that grow till I have a big enough balance to pay the bank off.
Just be careful. You're not going to go put that in the stock market or mutual funds or some speculative investment like cryptocurrency. We want something that's stable. We want something that's fairly liquid, meaning it's available to you. You could access that, and that it's not going to be volatile, that because of the economy, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I thought I was doing better, but now I'm not, and it's going to take me longer to pay off this loan. So you'll want to just continue to be a listener to figure this out as we continue to unveil different opportunities, but we want to begin with the cash flow index. You only pay extra to the one with the lowest, but if you find out that that's still going to be years before you pay it off, you want to set up a separate account and start funding that account first, because you want to build up enough in there to be able to write a check to pay this off in one fell swoop while you still have access to cash, liquidity, and a chance to earn interest. So we'll have other podcasts on how you can lower your interest rates, or how you can restructure your loans, or how you might be able to reallocate if you have inefficient or underperforming assets. But right now, we just want to focus on the cash flow index. And look, you might even find that if you have a lot of loans and you're feeling what most people would call deeply in debt, that can be a hindrance for your health, for your sleep, and for productive thinking. So I even have a strategy around that, because we want to help you abolish scarcity. It's the greatest destroyer of wealth. And one of the ways you could do it is what I would call the 90-day debt delay, where you find your cash flow indexes. And if you have one that's a really low cash flow index, rather than immediately putting money towards that low cash flow index, for the next 90 days, where could you invest your money as a business owner to increase productivity and profitability? As an employee, you increase your skill set or increase your ability that would allow you to get a raise and maybe even learn what to ask and what to do in those interviews in order to increase that income, so that you're investing back into yourself so that you become more productive. And then after that 90 days, now you can regroup with an increased income to start attacking those loans. It reminds me of when I was flying out of Newark. So I was flying out of Newark, and the pilot got in and said, we're in number 27 for takeoff. I was like, we're going to be here for a long time. Then they opened another runway that was actually going east, and I was trying to go back to Salt Lake City. But once they got in the air, they just turned around. So we actually went in the wrong direction for 10 minutes, and then we turned around and started heading the right direction. But it was better than sitting on the ground waiting forever. So the 90-day debt delay could feel that way. You're like, well, I'm not actually paying down my debt right now, or not paying down my loans to be more accurate. Well, the reality is, yeah, but you're now increasing your production. You're becoming more abundant. You're being able to create more value. You're increasing your income, which can make a massive difference over time, rather than falling prey and victim to being in scarcity and only scrimping, sacrificing, saving, delaying, deferring, paying this down, and not having any ability to think more productively.
Absolutely, and I love the cash flow index because it gives us an opportunity to discover what our best opportunity is for our cash, right?
Right.
We can look at that cash flow index and say, well, how much cash flow am I freeing up if I go after all my loans? But if instead I use that money, as you just described, to grow, will that outgrow the money that would have been saved by paying off those loans?
Right. You're going to hear a lot from us. Invest in yourself. First, always, right? So you're doing that now and in the future. You're going to hear us say you want to build up plenty of safety and liquidity, because it's not just so that you can handle turmoil or turbulent times, but it's so that you have cash for the opportunities that come your way. There's going to be opportunities, whether that's to buy a business, whether that's to make the right investment, whether that's to, grow your money, not because of, hey, everyone's doing it, but because something within your expertise, something within your wheelhouse, something within your knowledge. We're all in store for dozens of opportunities over our lifetime. Most people just don't have the cash to capitalize on it. And the best time to be able to capitalize on it is when no one else has access to cash, because it's all tied up in the equity of their home. It's all tied up in paying down one loan that didn't lower a payment. So we're trying to help you get more control over your money, have the proper methodology, have a lot more efficient method, and use and determine with this cash flow index. Now, what I've seen happen sometimes is the one with the lowest cash flow index is a 0% interest rate loan, either a credit card or a car loan. And so people will kind of battle with me or say, well, that doesn't make sense. I would pay off a 0% interest rate when I have a 12% credit card over here.
Absolutely. And the only time it would make sense is if those balances are similar, right? Or the cash flow index on them are similar.
Right.
Then I can understand like, okay, well, one's
It's
a
a few
20
points away.
and the other one's a 22.
Right.
Fine, go after the one with the interest rate. But when there's a big difference, you're going to get so much cash freed up for so little capital invested.
That you can now go attack that next loan with more vigor, with more cash.
Absolutely.
And you've lowered your risk because you no longer have that payment. And we're looking at everything from debt to income. Debt to income is for every dollar you earn, what percentage of that dollar has to go towards your loans, right? And the higher that amount, the harder it is to get access to borrowing or maybe even better interest rates because you can't go borrow the money because you've used too much of your debt to income. So if we can lower the bar from economic independence because we pay something off and then attack the next loan with even more cash that has been freed up, and plus, if we lower your debt to income, you might have access to better loans, and maybe paying off some of these loans actually improves your credit score. An improved credit score might lead to getting better interest rates. We're looking at a much bigger picture here, not just isolated in one single vacuum.
Absolutely, and that's what happens a lot of times with the loan thing, right? It's just get out of debt, get out of debt, get out of debt at all cost, any and all cost.
Right.
And so they just attack those loans with full vigor. They jeopardize their safety and security. They jeopardize their growth and production and all those things. The cash flow index allows you to get back into control. Yeah. And say, nope, this is the best way for me to handle it. I'm only handling this one. I'm going to do a debt delay. We have all these options that allow that growth and abundance, which will far, far outgrow the benefits of just total loan elimination.
Right, so loan balance divided by minimum monthly payment. Find your lowest cash flow index. After you find your lowest cash flow index, look, how long is it going to take to pay that off? If it's within 12 months, you might just put money directly towards that to pay that down. If it's going to be years and it's going to take longer, you might want to set up a separate account and start saving your money. We'll be able to reference different opportunities and options as we go through a tool called cash flow banking and a strategy that way where you could store your money and get maybe 4 or 5% in a tax advantaged way rather than sitting at 1, maybe 2% in a taxable way in most savings or money market accounts. And to even get 2%, you got to put in a decent amount of money or have access to the right types of banks for that. So we're looking at what are the most efficient ways. You might delay paying any loans for 90 days. Invest back into yourself, in skill set, back into your business if you own a business, or even creating a side hustle where you can start using those dollars to invest in building out the processes, procedures, or the types of things that allow you to earn that extra income. And then when your income goes up, then reallocating towards attacking your loan and paying it down, or reallocating towards putting more money into that savings account or that investment account that's more safe and stable, that then when that grows to a certain amount, you could pay these loans off. So look at those cash flow indexes, understand where you're at, and even if it's a lower interest rate, you might attack something with the lower cash flow index because it's going to free up that cash flow faster to attack the next loan. You might improve your credit score, which means there's going to be more opportunity. We're looking at the big picture, and I'll kind of end with this. I was in Minneapolis. I remember this because I just left Cancun, where it was 82 degrees. We're talking Fahrenheit. Then I flew into Minneapolis, where before wind chill, it was negative 22 degrees. The only conversations we had there were about the weather. Every time I saw someone, they were typically calling someone to come start their car. I met people that they did this for a living because it was so cold. You had to have special tools just to get the car to turn over. And my beard was frozen when I walked outside because I had some like oil in it to kind of shape it. I was like, wow, this is insane. And then now I'm speaking to 400 people. And before I've even really said anything, this woman's raising her hand, which made me think, maybe my fly was down. What was going on? I wasn't sure. But she was pretty emphatic about it. And so I was like, okay, I finally called on her. And she's like, I'm a CPA. And we joined working with your team, 13 and a half months ago. And your team said we'd be able to pay off our loans with a third less time. And that's not the case. Now, I started to consider when she said this, maybe I need to go outside, even though it's negative 22. That's where I really remember the weather. She says, in reality, we only have 18 and a half months left. Now, what did they do? They looked at the cash flow index. They found out which loans to attack one at a time. They then used other funds that were underperforming to pay off higher interest rate loans, which created a guaranteed return and improved their cash flow. They refinanced some of their loans and consolidated them at a lower interest rate, which then allowed a better situation that way, right? So with all of this, it shaved off a lot more than we originally anticipated, and then they took that extra money to pay down these loans that was going towards the other loans that now were refinanced, that were now paid off, and so there's kind of a trickle effect. So I just want to share that story. There's a lot of possibility, but the cash flow index is where it begins. Now, what you're paying with your cash flow index, that's one side of the story. But what does it look like for the bank? That's the investment index. We'll cover that on another episode.